it's a different time now, and that sort of we're going to tell you what to think and you're going to like it is not like people aren't buying it anymore.
In one day, you go
Right.
from being like our favorite person who we champion, who we put billboards up on, to you are the most vicious, evil human being in the world. As soon as you're not on board with Israel and Israel's wars.
I describe it very much. It is a psychological operation that is meant to break you.
The pro-Israel Zionists have just lost their influence over the American people. It's just undeniable. That hasn't played out in politics yet, but it is playing out in the culture. And that's what Dave Smith and Candace Owens got together to talk about in this clip. What does that have to do with where politics is headed? What does it have to do with Trump and this effort to cancel Tucker Carlson? Let's get right into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And so anyway, as Mark Levin is openly calling for you and Tucker's cancellation, and Dinesh D'Souza, people like this are openly calling, it is just funny because you're like, objectively right now, you and Tucker are the two biggest conservative political commentators. This is just undeniable. And so their plan right now is we want to cancel number one and number two. This is just like, how do you even get away with doing that when the people have already told you they're on their side, not yours?
Right.
What's it been like for you to just kind of watch this?
Well, yesterday was a fantastic day. I mean, to get the email from Podscribe, #1 podcast in the world, and I don't. Of course, I am humbled by it truly because the audience is the reason. Like, this truly was a free market response. And to go back and find the people who worked day in and day out to ruin my life. It wasn't like they just wanted me gone from the Daily Wire, which they got and they celebrated and effectively danced on my grave. It wasn't, they then were trying to get my speaking events canceled. They were the ones that put pressure on Charlie not to let me speak. And I said to him, dude, I got enough going on. Like, I don't want you to also just by proxy catch a flame because they want to cancel me. They got me banned from Australia. I had to cancel a tour, right? Simply because I didn't agree with Israel. That you would think that I harmed somebody by having a different opinion. And I think the reason why yesterday was such a win was precisely because they worked so hard and tried to destroy me, and we survived. That's where their true hatred and vitriol is coming from, is the fact that we survived a virtual assassination attempt, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true about this Zionist crowd that's trying to take out people like Candace Owens, at least figuratively, in terms of reducing her influence, but it's not going to work. And we celebrated us dissidents that, agreed with Candace on Israel and other related issues, and, skewering the Trump administration for launching a war versus Iran, covering up the Epstein files. And now, we have this deep state that's clearly still treacherous. It hasn't been steered in a better direction. It's because Americans were won over to those views that they favored Candace Owens over Ben Shapiro. And Dave's point is striking here, too, is that literally these Zionists, with waning influence, getting less and less of it over time, who listens to Mark Levin anymore? And Ben Shapiro's influence is getting lower and lower in comparison to these giants. They are trying to cancel #1 and #2, but arguably #3 as well, Nick Fuentes. He might be, a top 5 overall influencer on the right, too. He hasn't had as long of a track record, maybe, as like Steven Crowder or other people that might be in that conversation. But at the same time, man, he is skyrocketed. He's arrived. They have to deal with him whether they like to or not, or whether they want to harangue Tucker Carlson for daring to talk to him.
It's like we shouldn't have survived it, but given everything they did, and even the element of how they wanted me to be fired, like the element of surprise for Tucker to be fired. He's doing a show on a Tuesday, suddenly on a Wednesday, he doesn't get to say goodbye to his audiences. I really do believe even that was a part of their like sadistic effort to be like, you are no more. And so, yeah, it feels good. And I'm really happy to say all I did was commit to the truth, and I didn't allow peer pressure to come to something that's actually evil. Like, we're not even, it's like, do you agree that Palestinians should be genocided? No. Okay, well then you're going to be canceled. You're never going to be on a Republican stage ever again. Okay, bye. I'll just do my own show.
That's why people appreciate her courage. Literally what started that whole firestorm with the Daily Wire is her tweeting that genocide is wrong no matter who does it. That was her crime. She could have switched her issue on her opinion on any other issue. And this right wing Zionist leaning faction of Make America Great Again, but let's just be real, let's just make Israel great again. That's what their slogan really should be. She could have switched her opinion on any other topic and they wouldn't treat her this way. It's because that's their pet project, the Greater Israel Project. Israel first. Let's funnel as much money as we can down into the coffers of Netanyahu while he draws us into wars, takes our wealth while we're $38 trillion in debt, while we have inflation and raising prices that Americans can't avoid seeing whenever they go to the grocery store. Yeah, that's their project. That's all they seem to care about.
Okay, you're not going to be allowed to speak at the CPAC or the RNC. You're not going to get an invite to the White House. Okay, bye. I'd like to keep my morals and my principles in line. If I never get to go to Mar-a-Lago again, at least I can lay my head in the pillow and know that I'm not cheering for children to die, irrespective of whether they're Palestinian or Israeli. I'm not going to root on children dying. And so I think also something that's important to remember, Dave, is these people do not believe in the free markets. That's the number one thing to remember. They want people to be artificially pushed out of the free markets so that they can say they're number one. They love a world where, like what happened back, what was it, in 2020, when people were getting knocked off of platforms left and right. Maybe it was earlier than that, actually. It was before Trump was president. They love that world where you're artificially kicking out the Gateway pundit. You're not allowed to be on Facebook anymore. You're artificially kicking out Alex Jones. You're not allowed to platform. And then they go, we're number one. We are the number one most listened to conservative news podcaster. It's like, no, you're not. There's no market here.
It's exactly what they favor in terms of aid to Israel. Hey, we successfully lobbied the United States government to give more foreign aid to Israel than any other country. We've won. Well, it wasn't because of the free market of ideas. That's not the way that people are drawn to support Israel. It's by twisting the arms of people of prominence and politicians and getting members of Congress on the AIPAC grain dole. That's what this is. So Candace is exactly right. I admire her courage. You know, she doesn't care about rubbing elbows with the elite to try to affect policy. She cares about telling the truth. And you might disagree with her on some things. I do too. But man, you can just see in her eye, it just comes off so genuine. That's what she cares about.
And that's what they want right now. They want their markets to be restricted so that they can be number one again.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's right. And because in a way, if they make, look, if the punishment, let's say like for whatever, like it was in the old guard where like, if you canceled someone, that was it. There wasn't like another, they couldn't just go start their own podcast or something. Like when Bill O'Reilly got fired from Fox News, I mean, I guess he did go start a podcast, but even back then it was like, it just wasn't as big of a market. And also his audience was a lot older. They weren't getting into like the technology. So he goes from being a guy who's speaking to like 5 million people a night to being a guy who's speaking to like 80,000 people when he does a show. And that's like, that sucks. And, you know, you could see where the pressure would be like, hey, look, are you sure you want to say this one thing that'll piss everybody off? Because then you lose the right to say all the other things that you also might think are important. And you make people make these calculations in their mind. But you going to number one, it's like, oh, no, not only is there not a price to be paid, there's a reward in the market for people going like, oh, yeah, she stood up for what was right. And
yeah, isn't that the most hope-inspiring thing, by the way? There's so many things to be cynical about in our current political situation, in our current culture, you know, all sorts of maladies that affect the American public. But that is a gleaming beam of light. It's a silver lining to me, but that's the case. That it was because of her courageous stand against Israel, despite the Daily Wire celebrating as if that was a good thing. Hey, we're not going to work with her anymore. But she becomes bigger than ever. Tucker Carlson fired from Fox News. He's become bigger than ever. This is where America is going. There's nothing stopping it. They can try to bring as much propaganda as they want. They're not going to stop this trend. And it's in a better direction. I think it's worth celebrating.
As you talk, like when you get down to the specifics of it, what you're talking about is like, I mean, I don't know, me and you've been reading the news for 2 years on this. You're talking about what? Children being shot at as they desperately try to get food because they've been starving for like I'm sorry, the American right wing is still made up of a lot of Christians and a lot of people who are just like, what? No, they're decent people. They're not going to go along with this. And the thing is, like, they kind of never got presented the opportunity to hear from people who were going to make that argument. And you've been a part of this huge, like, test study of like, well, how would it work if there was actually a market? And yes, I think it's incredibly rewarding for me to see you being the number one podcast, because it shows that, like, yeah, like, you demonstrated that people could have the courage to say the right thing, and then the audience demonstrated that, like, yeah, and there's a lot of people who will have your back if you do that.
Absolutely. It's so encouraging to see this, and it is a result of the new media. We're not playing by those same old games anymore. And despite the neocons and Zionist attempts to undermine these people, ruin them, likening them to Hitler, and Randy Fine saying that Tucker Carlson's the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. That's an exact quote, by the way. It's not working, and it's so uplifting to me that it's not working. It's become a meme. It's become so comical that the backlash against this is so much worse than the people that they persuade on the periphery and on the edges to go along with this stuff still. We're not going along with Israel first anymore.
I just think that's a great precedent to be set.
It is. And I'm so grateful, because I want to remind people, you might think of me now as anti-Israel, but when they came after my entire life, I just wanted to learn about the topic. I actually didn't have a perspective, but I knew that I didn't know everything. And they were just so vicious with, no, you have to come out and you have to say these things. And I was like, look, I don't know anything about this. Let me speak to speak to other people. Like, I watched Bassem go viral, the clip go viral where he was holding up the chart. And I was going, whoa, that is kind of crazy. Like, are this many Gazans dying? Then I went back and I watched some old content of you on Joe Rogan speaking about the topic. Then I hosted you at the Daily Wire, and that was a big wake-up call. And I really was coming from a place, it's still one of my favorite episodes. I think they pulled all the content down, but just learning about Middle Eastern politics. I'm not presenting myself as an expert. And I think that is what also the market is responding to, is at least I want to learn. At least I am showing that I will correct where I was wrong. I was working for PragerU, Daily Wire. I was working with Zionists. I obviously had no hatred in my heart towards the Zionist cause.
Yeah, history bears that out. That's how that started. She literally tweeted that it's wrong to commit a genocide no matter who does it. That started this firestorm of animosity from the Daily Wire and from Ben Shapiro toward her. And it was her actually taking issue with Representative from Florida, Brian Mast, saying there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. That's his verbatim tweet. Him posting that got her to respond. And because she said this is genocidal language, this has no place if you actually, purport to be pro-life, that's what got the Zionist crosshairs on her. She wasn't even rigidly anti-Zionist at that point 2 years ago. But she's certainly headed in that direction, I think rightly so, along with vast swaths of the American public.
And then it was just asking the question. Like, I was messaging with Max Blumenthal, because strange allies, right? And he has done some really incredible work. And I went back and I found these messages from a time where I simply retweeted Max Blumenthal on something that he said about Kyrie Irving that I agreed on. So it wasn't even about Israel. And I got messages, like, all I can tell you is, like, Agent Smith. I sent it to him. It's crazy. Like, Marissa Strait, Dave Rubin. And I actually apologized to them, because I was like, wow, this guy must literally be Hitler. Like, I didn't know. I just saw it trending and I retweet him.
Think about that and how heroic Max Blumenthal is. I know they've gotten closer together. Max Blumenthal has had good things to say about Candace and her turn away from the pro-Israel cause. And Max is one of the most heroic journalists of our time. We feature him a lot on this channel. He's brilliant. And guess what? He's a dissident leftist. I'm not. I'm a dissident right-wing libertarian. But we see so much common ground in some of these issues that you just can't deny the power of this new single-issue coalition that can unite dissidents on both sides. I think it's so empowering, and it's very telling how the Zionists react to this sort of thing. That's the last thing they want. They want this left versus right paradigm that they've always lived under and have been able to control in favor of the Israel lobby. Well, that's being shattered. There are new dynamics going on right now, and the Zionists aren't prepared to meet this moment.
That's what kind of goes on behind the scenes. Like, they are actually presenting themselves as free speech thinkers, and then they put pressure on people and tell them, hey, even listening or retweeting Max Blumenthal, you may not know it. And they told me this. He's an anti-Semite. Like, he's a committed anti-Semite.
He's Jewish. They'll go to, oh, he's a self-hating Jew, but they've done that to Dave Smith. He's Jewish. They've done that to Jeffrey Sachs. They've done that to Norman Finkelstein. They do that to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not. They'll call you anti-Semitic regardless. It's so tried. People see this now. It's going the way of the word racism when that was shouted down at anyone that took issue with one of your pet positions. It doesn't have the same power as it once did because of its misapplication and overapplication.
Max Blumenthal.
Yeah.
Like, so
Right.
it's a different time now. And that sort of, we're going to tell you what to think and you're going to like it, is not like, people aren't buying it anymore.
As I've been talking about lately, because I was a Ron Paul supporter back in the day, and I remember Ben Shapiro saying like that Ron Paul wants to strangle Jews and that he's a vicious anti-Semite, and I'd be like, whoa, like, and you realize you're like, oh, it was easy in those years for them to pretend like that wasn't actually all they cared about. But actually, that's all they care about. And I mean all they care about. And this has been revealed. This is the thing with the neocons. This is why even the original core neocon group, they were all a bunch of commies who then became Democrats, who then became Republicans, and then became Democrats again. And
this is true, by the way. If you don't want to take it from Dave, take it from Irving Kristol and James Burnham and William F. Buckley. All were once Trotskyites. They were self-described Trotskyites, and the only modification of their ideology was instead of exporting, the proletariat revolution, the communist revolution across the world through permanent revolution. That's a concept that Trotsky talked about. We're going to do it for democracy. We're going to export democracy throughout the world instead of focusing inwardly. That was true.
Why they when they were George W. Bush Republicans, they were like, marriage is between a man and a woman, and our culture is getting out of because they just thought that was the best way to get votes for their wars. And then when Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, they went, okay, she likes the wars, we'll go support Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Marriage,
That's exactly
gay marriage,
right.
anyone who's against gay marriage is a homophobe or whatever. Like, but they don't actually. And so, look, just think about it, right? Why would someone like Ben Shapiro, at the very least, wouldn't he have liked a lot of things about Ron Paul? Oh, he's the most fiscal conservative guy. He's the strict constitutionalist. He's a devout Christian who, believes in traditional values. There's a million different things that you would look. He would go, oh, I like a lot of his thing. I do disagree with him on foreign policy. Nope. He's evil.
That's exactly right. This is such a good point because the prioritization, the warped prioritization, in fact, of Ben Shapiro and the issues was so apparent even back then, where it's so clear that all he really cared about was Israel. He's willing to say that Ron Paul, of all people in this universe, fantasizes about strangling Jews. It's so absurd. It's so abhorrent and ridiculous and just comical. And Dave is absolutely correct. They just saw this as a pathway to acquire power, get into these wars for Israel, support them. That's why they were never Trumpers when Trump actually had good rhetoric against the wars. He turned out to be a charlatan on the wars, of course. But back then, they were fearful that, hey, Trump might actually turn out to be a non-interventionist. We're never Trump. We'd rather support Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy. That's exactly what Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and these people in his orbit were saying back then.
As soon as you're not on board with Israel and Israel's wars, you're even. And I think part of what happened here is that you, just by doing what you did, it demonstrated that not only, it's not like it went from like, Candace is great, she's been heroic on all these issues, we really disagree with her on this one. It went, all of that's gone in one day. You go from being like our favorite person who we champion, who we put billboards up on, to you are the most vicious, evil human being in the world for saying, I just had some babies and I'm seeing this mom holding her dead babies. And I'm thinking to myself like, oh my God, what would it be like to hold your dead baby? Jeez, that's horrible. Like that's enough to make, and just people seeing that, like can't pretend they're not seeing what they're watching.
It's so true. That is how gentle it was. I had seen it was a dead Palestinian child, and she looked like my daughter. And I was going, well, this is crazy. Like, this is not just a black and white issue. I need to actually learn about this issue. And as soon as you express a feeling, I describe it very much. It is a psychological operation that is meant to break you.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's hard to take issue with anything that she said. And Dave is right. She could have changed her opinion on any other issue. Just imagine if she instead of supporting free market economics, suddenly became, a pro-tariff protectionist. Do you think this would have had that effect where Ben Shapiro and all the Zionists in his orbit and the billionaire Zionist financier class, you know, suddenly came to the conclusion that Candace Owens is the biggest threat to humanity and she must be buried forever. We must sever all ties. Or imagine if it was something like her change in position on healthcare or something. They never would have done that because of how they prioritize issues. And it's a warped perversion of prioritization, if you're asking me. If you're building your movement on the slogan of the cornerstone principle, America First, it's just too hypocritical, man. And that is why Trump is losing a lot of his support. It's not just the Epstein cover-up. It's not just the tariff regime and, you know, other things related to that. It is this Israel issue. It is this warped priorities that we've seen manifest in this administration. And he's not alone in that. You know, his precursors certainly prioritized the interests of Israel, you know, before the United States too, obviously so. That's actually what led to so much support behind Trump, his stated objective of favoring U.S. domestic concerns over these foreign states. But people were duped by that, and he hasn't followed through. That's why he's losing so much support. So yeah, this is what is going on right now. The Zionists are losing their stranglehold on the American culture. They just are. It's so plain to see. We have no wool covering our eyes to not be able to see that now. It's become so plain. And the hit campaign against Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens is becoming clear. These people are so jealous that they have outpaced their appeal and outpaced their influence, so much so that they're trying to knock them down artificially because they can't knock them down in the free market of ideas, which I thought they were for. But it turns out they are just frauds and charlatans, simping and going to battle for this foreign regime, no matter how much it costs Americans and the American taxpayer. But what do you guys think? Do you think Candace Owens and Dave Smith are right about this? Are the Zionists losing their influence over the culture, if not the politics yet? That's what I think, at least. Let me know in the comments down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Dave Smith. Thanks, Dave. Great conversation here. If you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member also. You can do that by clicking the join button down below. And if you do that, you can get all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to view all those members only videos immediately. If you support me, really appreciate that if you go to that length. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It'll shoot you out to a site. You'll plug in your email. I'll send it to you completely free in PDF form, no obligation whatsoever. My gift to you. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.